Okay, a box contains some green and yellow buttons. There are 500 buttons in total. 50% of the green buttons are removed and 70% of the yellow buttons are removed. The total number of buttons left in the box is now 208. And we're asked how many green buttons were there in the box at the start. Okay, if you don't have much algebra knowledge, then how to solve a problem like this might seem really very tricky, and it might seem tricky to even think about how to begin drawing it. So really, all you can do with a problem like this is to draw the information that you're told. Okay, so we're going to draw a green bar and we're going to draw a yellow bar. And I've noticed that we're dealing in percentages. So what I'm going to do is to make each bar, give each bar 10 equal parts. Okay. So, and I think just actually to make things clearer, and because I've got color here, I'm going to use some color. But what I am really trying to replicate is using pencil and paper here, which is why I don't use many of the online maths manipulatives. There's lots of really neat online things you can use for doing bar models now. They're great. They're great for explaining, things to students sometimes. But I do like to use a method that's like a pen and paper, because that's in reality how we're going to do it. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's my bar for green. And I'm not going to use yellow because it's too pale. I'm going to use an orangey color for the yellow. Okay. And this is my bar for yellow. Now, I'm drawing what I know, but I also need to bear in mind what I don't know. And I do not know if there are more green buttons or more yellow buttons or the same number of green and yellow buttons. I simply don't know that. So I do not know what the size of this part is in relation to this size, to this size. What I do know is I am going to treat these as unequal. Okay, this part is the same as this part, but this part is probably not the same value as this part. Okay, and that I need to just bear in mind when I'm drawing my model or using it. Okay. What else do I know? What else happens? Well, I know that there are 500 buttons in total, so let's put that in. So this whole model has a value of 500. Okay, what happens? 50% of the green buttons are removed. Okay, I tend to remove things from the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 50% of the green buttons are removed and 70% of the yellow buttons. Okay, so right, that's 6 and 7, that's 70%. So those are the ones that are removed. What are we told? Well, the total number of buttons left in the box is now 208. Okay, so that means that this part here, okay, plus this part here, so has a value of 208. Now, remember what I said is this part is not equal to this part, so I can't now just divide 208 by 8 and think I've then got the value of all of these parts. I don't, okay, because these are not. Yeah, it's literally, it's these are the green ones. I don't know how many green buttons are represented by each of these parts. And I don't know how many yellow buttons are represented by each of these. What I do know is they're likely to be different. Okay, so what do I do? Because what I need to do is to find a value that I can attribute to just some green parts or just some yellow parts. That's what's going to help me. So what do I do? Okay, well, what I am going to do is redraw or this part of the model down here. So green and yellow. I'm going to draw that bit there. So here we have, all right, that's the 5 parts of green, 3 parts of yellow, and together they have a value of 208. Okay. Now, I've done this because I've noticed that this 5 is half of the green total, yeah, the original green amount. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a second set, okay, a second set. This is what I mean. So here we're going to do another 5 green and another 3 yellow. Okay. What's the value of these two? Well, if these two have a value of 208, these two must have a value of 208. Okay. So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that this model, okay, has a value of 208 times 2, which is 416. Okay, now you might be seeing where I'm going with this now, because let's compare this model with this model. What's the difference? Well, the difference is here. It's these missing 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow parts. Okay, so the difference between these two models is here. And that must be equal. That means that these 4 parts must be equal to the difference between these two values. Okay, so 500 minus 416 gives us 84. Okay, just to make it even more obvious, here we go. I can give a value here of this. This is 84. So 84 divided by 4 gives us 21. So we now know that each of these parts has a value of 21. Now, what does that tell us? Well, does it tell us, do these have a value of 21? No, we can't assume that, because right at the beginning, I have said they are different. We don't know. We do now know how to calculate how many yellow buttons there were at the beginning, which is 21 times 10. So the yellow buttons, the total is 210. Now, if we take 210 away from the original total of buttons, which is 500, that leaves us with 290, which must be then the value of all of the green buttons. And in fact, I think I should have put that in at the beginning. That is what we were asked to calculate, wasn't it? How many green buttons were there in the box at the start? Okay, so that's 290. And of course, we could have, calculated anything. They could have said how many green buttons were removed, which obviously would have been half of that, or whatever. But that is how I have visualized it, and I hope it helps.